What's up, everybody? What's going on? What is going on? You are here locked in into your favorite weekly conversation in B.M.B. Tell It Like It Is. I guess you can tell I was trying to come up with something off the top of my head, but it really didn't do it. So you got B.M.B. Tell It Like It Is here, and you got me, your man B-Mack Brent. You got Mel-Bone. You got B. Brown, the king. And as you can see, we have a fourth square. And we call this series Temple's Finest. If you don't know what that is, that's Temple, Texas. We are all from Temple. We're going to do a series of interviews from our people from Temple, Texas. Because I've talked to people up here in Dallas, and when they say, where are you from? I say, I'm from Temple. Oh, ain't nothing going on in Temple. And I kind of get into it with them. I'm going like, hey, man, don't be sleeping on Temple. Stuff is going on in our hometown. And let me tell you, this guest that we have tonight, he's not a guest. He is a family member. We all grew up together. We all good friends, best friends. We are brothers. We all support our pastor, our bishop. I mean, we hold it down for Bishop McBride and Grace Temple Ministries and our families in Temple. We have Guillermo Carnegie.
How's it going?
Yes, sir.
What's up? G-Mo,
Yeah.
aka G-Mo.
Yeah.
I appreciate y'all having me on the podcast.
Yes,
man.
sir. We are excited, man, to have you with us to give us some information that you have been doing for the last 3 months, if I have that correct.
Correct. I've been in New York for the last 3 months.
He was in ground zero. He took the time to sacrifice to go help those in need in New York City. So, Guillermo, as I tell soldiers, I tell it to our frontline workers, our nurses and doctors, thank you not just for your service, but for your sacrifice, because that was a big sacrifice for you to uproot and leave your family and go help out those in need in New York City. But thank God you have made it back home safe and sound. So thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. Happy Father's Day too.
Yeah, man.
I know you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. I was still out there then, but yeah. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
So just to kind of give you a little breakdown, what we're going to talk about tonight, everybody, how Governor Abbott has dealt with the coronavirus here in Texas. And then Guillermo's going to talk about how we can prevent things from happening to us here in the state while we deal with this virus, this disease, this invisible enemy. And then also we're going to have a few questions for Guillermo about what happened in New York, what's going on here in the state of Texas. And then just to give y'all a little breaking news what happened in the world. In the state of Mississippi, the state legislation passed a bill to change the state flag, to take the Confederate emblem off the flag. So that just happened about 20 minutes ago. So that is breaking news. So I call it the George Floyd effect. So many laws, so many things have been changed since the death of George Floyd. Still hate that it had to happen where a brother had to lose his life in the hands of the police, not lose his life, but be murdered in the hands of the police. But you see all these changes that are happening in the world. So that's a great thing to see. And I think Belgic had a good standpoint on reading why that is happening. So Belgic, we're going to break that down real quick. And anybody else that want to jump in.
Are you talking about them taking down the
emblem?
Mm-hmm. The emblem? From what I was seeing, there were a lot of athletes who played for the state of Mississippi, Ole Miss and Mississippi State, two of the major universities there. A lot of players were not going to play. Matter of fact, one player actually he transferred. He entered the transfer portal because he didn't want to play no more because of the emblem of the flag. And so, and of course, college football is a billion-dollar business. And so, you have some of your top athletes that are at these schools. They're not going to play. That means that team is not going to have somebody on there to put people in the seats. So, that's something that's major.
And just to add on to that, Mel, I mean, it's not just Mississippi. You saw it in Oklahoma as well, with Oklahoma State.
Right.
So a lot of these players now are taking stands, which is real positive, because it's causing these coaches and these schools to really look at their history, songs. When you look at UT, their fight song, it's just causing them to, pause and take a look and start changing some things about the culture that, people have been trying to get done for the longest. Now it's actually happening. So that's a good point to bring up, Mel. So, and these athletes, it just shows you how much power they have as well. I think they were talking about some athletes at Liberty University that decided to leave the school because they felt the school didn't support their issues or issues that they cared about. They respected the people, the staff at the school, but they felt like they didn't, support their issues on, like social issues. And so these athletes definitely have a voice, man, and it's positive, and it's real powerful too. So when you hear them speak up, that's a good thing. So
just to piggyback on, what y'all are saying, is definitely a good thing. And a couple of things that's going to affect change is legislation and affecting the bottom dollar. Those are really the two things that the government or society really cares about. Legislation is the laws that are in place that'll help us and will benefit us and protect us. But if not that, if you do something that affects the bottom dollar, then they'll start changing, because they might not even care about you or care about your issues, but they care about their money. So if you can do something that affects their money, like those college players were doing, like y'all were talking about, how the college players can, take a stance by, boycotting or not playing or threatening to leave. Yeah. When you affect their dollars, that's when, a lot of change will start happening.
Yeah. And a lot of those brothers, they going to HBCUs.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, one of the top, if not the top, basketball player coming out of high school.
Yes, sir.
Was no longer going to, I forget what school he was going to, but now he's going to go to HBCU. I don't think he's chosen which one yet, but that's going to make a big change, because I watched something on ESPN a while back where HBCUs used to be the powerhouses in football, because they had all the athletes from all these other states before they start, because we weren't allowed to go to the big universities back then.
Right.
And so all these HBCUs had all the talent, in all these schools. So, man, it's I think it's going to be a big change, and it may end up starting to be like that again.
Yep. And it just takes one.
Yeah.
Oh, I was real proud to hearing that those brothers are, thinking about going to. No, they're not thinking about it. They are going to. They, like Brother said, they just hadn't picked which one they want to go to just yet, but it's happening. And like I said, it just takes one to get the spark going. So like Mel just said, hopefully it can bring that power and money back to HBCU that is much needed. So I'm happy for that. So, that was a good start into the conversation. So now, since we Texans, let's keep it at home. Our Governor Abbott, the numbers are getting higher and higher here in the great state of Texas. Now, okay, once he started opening the state back up, there was an article in Newsweek back in June 16th. The governor criticized young people for not taking the coronavirus seriously. And then if you just look down the timeline, on the 22nd, there was an article put out by Newsweek as well, where Texas governor warns corona is spreading at an unacceptable rate. And then if you keep looking, and if you wondering where I'm getting all these articles from, they're posted to our B.M.B. Tell It Like It Is page. And then there's an article under TexasDemocrats.org where Governor Abbott followed President Donald Trump's reckless blueprints when undermining the coronavirus pandemic. And then there's I think one of the last articles that we posted on the page from CNN.com. Texas Governor Abbott to residents the safest place to be is in your homes. And that was on June 25th when that article was posted by CNN.com on the B.M.B Tell Like It Is page. So, I mean, I hate for all this to happen for you to finally wake up, Governor Abbott, to the point of where we were already not happy. Correct me if I'm wrong. The numbers wasn't that bad when the first, well, people keep saying first wave, second wave. We ain't really got over we still in the first wave to me, because we really hadn't had any treatment yet or anything. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gmo. So I'm just like, you could have been a political hero where the numbers were still staying down, but then I understand you want to get the economy back open, but then you heard the rhetoric from the president saying governors are weak, y'all need to open back up the economy in your states. And now we're in this situation where now we are a hot spot. Florida is a hot spot. Arizona is a hot spot. The South is a hot spot. And I heard this a long time ago. They said once it goes south, it's not going to be good once it goes south. So from those articles, from that timeline of articles that have happened, what are y'all's points on that?
So I definitely, I definitely think that it was Texas opened up too soon. But I also think the mentality of a lot of Texans, they really wasn't taking it too serious. So when I was in New York the past 3 months, so I, disconnected from social media, deactivated my social media accounts. I didn't watch the news or anything because, I wanted to keep myself in a positive mind frame. So I really wasn't paying too much attention to what the government or anybody was saying. I just knew what I was living. And then of course, experiencing COVID myself, what I was feeling. So I was basing my thought process on what I was seeing and what I was experiencing. But there was a few people in New York working with me that were from Texas. So they would like show me things and show me, it was an article that I didn't read, but I just saw the picture of people in Texas protesting, wearing masks. And I was like, man, that's, they doing that in Texas. They want to protest not to wear the mask. So I was like, man, it's crazy. But before I left, and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to be gone for probably 3 months or so. When I come back, it's going to be jumping in Texas because I already know the mentality, right? So that was just me before I left saying that. I say I was gone for maybe about a month, and I flew home just to surprise my wife and my son and my mom for my son's birthday and for Mother's Day. So I flew in. Nobody knew I was flying in. What I noticed when I flew into Texas was that nobody in Texas had masks on. In the airport, nobody had masks. My Uber driver hopped out trying to shake my hand, didn't have a mask on. In New York, everybody had masks on. Uber, animals, dogs walking around with masks on. That's how serious they took it in New York. But in Texas, nobody had masks on. I was going to the store, everybody walking about, they stood together, they weren't social distancing. Nobody had masks on at the store, Walmart, things of that nature. And I was like, man, they're not really taking this thing serious down here. And I told my wife, I said, it's going to get really bad in Texas. And it happened. That's because of the government had opened up too soon and people really wasn't taking it serious enough in Texas. People are more focused on the economy. There's a lot of Fortune 500 companies in Texas. It is big business. The governor, under the example of Trump, opened up earlier than it should. When I was in New York and I heard Texas had opened up, I said, it's way too soon. This is going to be a disaster. And now, you're seeing that.
I can give you a couple of examples of what you were talking about, Gmo. So first example was, it was one Sunday, it was after church. I was like, I had a craving. I wanted some pancakes. And I was like, I'm gonna just order something online. I'm gonna go to IHOP and I'm pick these pancakes up and I'm gonna go home. So I make my order and then I go. And of course, when I walk in, I go in with my mask on. And so when I walk in, there were some people, like they had a couple of tables by the doors stating where if you had a pickup order or if you want to eat in, they had those two tables that you were supposed to stand next to. So when I got in there was a few people who were standing. I guess it was a family They were standing together. Like I said, they took their order, and so when they put their name down on the list to be seated, and so they put their names in the tablet, and then they said, well, once we send you a text message to your phone, you'll be able to come in and be seated. Now, so, and then they had to go outside and wait. So I told them I had a pickup order. They were like, okay. So I sat down on the little seats right there. I had a mask on. Everybody who was working had a mask on. But as I looked around the room, and I think at the time it was only, I think it was 50% capacity, maybe. It might have been less than that. But and they did have tables skipped, but other than that, all the tables were filled. There was nobody in there eating with a mask on. Now, I'm not saying eat with the mask on, but there was nobody in there who had a mask. People who got up and left when they were leaving out, they didn't have a mask on. People who came in who wanted to order, they didn't have mask on. I was the only person who had a mask on besides the workers. And I was like, what's wrong with these people? Do you not understand what's going on? Like I don't care if I did go eat at a restaurant. I'm not 100% sure if they cleaned that table off, or if they cleaned the seats off. I mean, I'm gonna be more conscious about it because it's this thing is going on, and like you said, people aren't taking it seriously. And I'll give you another example. My job, they require us because we're considered essential, so they require, because we never closed down, and they required us to at first we weren't required to wear a mask at work, and so some people wore them and some people didn't. And customers, you had some customers that came in and they had masks on, and there were a good amount of people who didn't. So maybe it was last week, for about a week, they mandated us to have customers come in the store with masks, because within our own company, and and not just the rest of Texas, but within our own company, there were more people cases coming out from people who work for the company, and so they mandated customers to wear masks. I mean, yeah, customers to wear masks. That lasted until last Thursday. So Monday through half of the day, Thursday, customers were required to wear a mask. But as people come in the store, and we mentioned them, if they want to be inside the store, they have to wear a mask. Some folks would get all upset and they would leave. And I'm like, all we did was just ask you to wear a mask to protect yourself and for us to be protected as workers as well. And so you're right. People don't want to do it. I understand it's uncomfortable, but I'm wearing it the whole time I'm there, and I'm doing it. You in there for maybe 10, 15 minutes at the most. You can wear that mask for that short amount of time. When you go outside, you can take it off. But there were a lot of people who didn't like doing it. They were complaining, and I'm sure corporate got a bunch of calls about people complaining, not wearing who didn't want to wear their mask. So in the middle of the day on Friday, they send an email saying, okay, well, if your county does not mandate you having to wear a mask, for example, like Travis County, you have to wear a mask in all of Travis County, no matter where you go, in any business, you have to wear a mask. But in Williamson County, where I work, it's not mandated, so you don't have to. So they was telling us that if the customers want to wear a mask, they can, that's fine. It's recommended, but if they don't want to, they don't have to. And I'm like, but you require us as workers to wear it. So if you're giving our customers a choice, why are you not giving us a choice? You should just keep it how it was. Make everybody wear a mask that's inside of the store.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's to me, that's more. And I'm sure everybody doesn't have the most proper mask out there that you would need, but still, it is something. It is a face covering.
But
so I mean,
yeah.
So I mean, but like I said, that was another example of masks and people wearing masks and people not wearing masks, which goes all back to what you were talking about, Jimo.
It does too. Yeah, it does too. And to piggyback off of what you were saying, Meldred, I think too. I don't know if we can really blame some of the people, because I think they're getting a lot of mixed messages, whether it's from the administration, it's from government, and then you got businesses and you got professionals who are telling them two different things. And so you got people who work in the medical field saying, wear a mask, wear your PPE, sanitize your hands, don't wipe your face, don't wipe your eyes. And you got your administration and people in the government who are not wearing masks at all. They go visit these different states. They do a lot of interviews and they don't have masks on. They don't feel like they should wear them, because they're in leadership or whatever. So you see these people who are watching this, and they're getting two mixed messages. They're wondering if they really should do it or if they really shouldn't. Is coronavirus real? Is this really a hoax? And so it's too many different messages, I think, that are being just spewed out here. Also, I think too, to your point, Gmo, when you talked about right before you left and you saw those people protesting, I think people were getting tired of being inside, told that they couldn't go outside. So they were protesting, the reopening and things like that, and wearing the mask. But I think it really comes back to that mixed messaging that they've been receiving. And I think my wife one time as well even saw an interview on one of the local news stations where when we started to do the reopening here in Texas, and they were interviewing people who were out and about. One lady, was like, "I'm glad it's over now," and we were like, "What? It's not over. They haven't found a vaccine for this yet. Of course, they're letting the states and places reopen, but this thing is not over." And so I think some people took that mentality to that, since they're reopening things. Oh, it's over now. Summer's here. It's okay. We can go back to life the way it was. And so it's just a lot of mixed messaging and people getting the wrong ideas as well with what's going on. So good points though. I appreciate those.
I want to say this real quick and let me know if I'm just flat out wrong. First off, we got to remember in the United States, there are over 2.6 million cases, over 40,000 deaths. 40,000 deaths. If I do it, no, I'm sorry, 128,000 deaths. And total recovery is over a million. It's over a million, almost 1.1 million. Now, they keep saying there's not a treatment, but the only treatment that I see that we can use right now is wearing the face mask until there is a vaccine, until there is some type of treatment for the coronavirus. Because, I mean, can you break down the percentages of what the masks do versus, or certain types of masks what we should wear?
So I don't have those statistics available. But I wouldn't call wearing a mask a treatment because it's not a treatment. It's a preventative measure. But not just wearing a mask, like they all, it's like a basket of treatment measures. So one without the other, it doesn't work that well, but all of them together, they work great. It's like a fist being powerful. Yeah, if you just wear the mask, but you don't social distance, you don't wash your hands or anything of that nature, then it's not that powerful. But if you do everything together, so we never advise one without the other. Always wear a mask, social distance, avoid touching your hands or face, always wash your hands, and try to limit non-essential movement outside of your house. So you're doing all those together that makes it a powerful preventive measure. Now, as far as some percentages, but not actual numbers, certain masks work better than other masks. I wear, because I'm still quarantining, I wear an N95 mask whenever I am like at home now. Of course I took it off for the interview, but I normally wear an N95 mask when I'm here because that's as far as the pore size, that protects you from anything that's airborne. It's probably overkill for most people, but because I just came back, I just got my another COVID test when I got back just to be sure. And those results just came in. I haven't looked at them yet, but I wear an N95 mask, and that's like top of the line. It gives you it's 95, so it blocks out 95% of the particles. Now, there's other masks like a regular surgical mask that I don't have with me, but y'all are familiar with that. So that's the next best thing is a surgical mask. I don't know the numbers of that, but it's not. It might be 50-ish or so, 50 to 70, if I can recall.
Is that surgical mask the one that you normally see people wearing? Is that
in the hospitals, like you normally see surgeons and medical personnel wearing those masks? So that's a surgical mask, and that's the next best step. And then I think there might be a different type of surgical mask that's not as great as that one. And then there's just regular face covering. Regular face covering has the least amount of effect because the particles are the virus particles are so small it'll permeate the cotton just because of how it is in any other material that you normally use for masks. So those are like the least likely to keep you safe, but they're better than not having anything. And one of the mask is twofold. It'll protect you from airborne, or droplet precautions, but it also protects you from touching your face. So it's a cover that helps protect you so you don't inadvertently touch your face, which we do all the time and not really, notice we do that. So even just a covering will help prevent that. And so that decreases the spread as well. Yes, it's spread by droplet precautions or droplets, but the main issue is the droplets lay on things and you touch your hands, so now your hands are contaminated, and then you go to touch every other thing. That's the main way things are being spread is because people touch their face, they have droplets on their hands, and it's everywhere else. So those are the different types of masks and percentages based upon the mask, but I don't have the numbers, in regards to how much the mask keeps, you safe versus someone who doesn't wear a mask.
Okay.
But it's the numbers show that they do
that's
protect
good.
you. The better.
And we probably should go ahead and let him just kind of give his experience.
Yes.
With everything, and then we can get into the questions after that, and then also talk about your business too, man. So yeah, go ahead, bro. It's yours. The floor is yours.
The floor is yours.
Okay, well, so I'm the owner of an assisted living facility here in Temple, Texas. It's called Carnegie Care. I also have my wife and my mom who are also nurses. My wife is our manager, and my mom is the administrator and the director. We kind of hold, many titles, and I'm the CEO, but she's kind of still almost like the boss because she's still my mom. So,
amen. Go ahead, Sister Carnegie.
Your mom is always gonna be your mom. So, and I don't, for some reason, I can't get my mom and my wife to call me boss, even though I have the title of CEO and owner. They refuse to do that. But it's good to have a family-owned and operated business, and not just because it's family-owned and operated. I trust them with my life. My mom is also business-oriented, entrepreneur, and she kind of put that drive in me. So. We have a facility now. We're looking to open another one where we have 1 to 8 residents per home that we provide one-on-one care, personalized care. I'm also a nurse practitioner, so I have the knowledge to be able to help family members. And so our motto is family caring for family, because it is our family caring for your family. Located here in Temple, Texas. So the last 3 months I've been in New York, and it's been a roller coaster. Being there so long, it's just you have so many waves from when I first got there, and it was extremely crazy, and we were having 5 and 6 people die, every single night. I remarked that my first week there, I had more deaths personally than I had in that week in my 15-year medical career, and I work a lot in ICU and intense areas where you have a lot of deaths, and I've never seen anything like I saw my first week there in my entire career. So it's been a roller coaster experience. There was a lot of deaths. It was just a situation where I never imagined myself being in. Even if you go in and you prepare for the worst, I didn't know it was going to be as bad as it was, not only with the type of critical patients we had, but the lack of resources we had, and resources by the lack of supplies for the most part. And I say that because the unit, we were responsible for converting this unit that was a PACU unit or a post-surgical unit. We had to change that into an ICU unit. ICU, you need critical supplies. You need things to intubate patients that are, can't breathe, and you're putting basically the breathing tube down them. You need all that, supplies and resources there. Well, they didn't have that there because it wasn't that type of unit. So my team, as complete strangers to that facility, we had to create and make and rig together supplies basically to save these people's lives in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of not knowing anything, without any orientation. When I first walked into that to the unit, I looked around just to kind of see where I was, just see how it was looking, and just saw, around 20 or so patients intubated, some of them prone or on their stomach, which they're really, really critical. And I thought to myself, like, this looks and feels like death. Death was the first thing that came to my mind, because these were some of the sickest patients I've ever seen in my life. And I asked somebody who was running by, I asked them, like, hey, where's the charge nurse, so I can, be instructed on, what I needed to do. And she pointed and she said they were over there, and it was a group of people huddling over a patient. And so I walked towards that patient to ask for the charge nurse. And before I can even introduce myself, the patient coded. So the patient's basically heart stopped. I was walking and I was like about to, say my name. Somebody said, I can't feel a pulse. And so, I reach just out of instinct, you look up and at a monitor, you see their heart rhythm, and it was a systole, which is that flat line, which means your heart's not beating. And so just instantly I reached out to feel a pulse, a femoral pulse in the groin. I didn't feel anything. And then I started CPR, just out of instinct. I didn't know anybody. I've been on the floor less than 5 minutes. I didn't know anything about anybody else, but that patient coded right there, started CPR, few rounds, brought him back. And then the patient next to him coded. And then that night, a lot of patients coded and died. And that was day one. And so the rest of the week went similar to that. There's a lot of deaths. A lot of patients died. We did familiarize ourselves with the area because we were there so many days. We were on a 21-day contract. So we worked 21 days, 12-hour shifts. We're off 2. And then, we do it again. Being there so much, you got to learn everything pretty fast. And so then they wanted me to be the charge nurse. So then I became the charge nurse of that unit. And me and this other girl, we were able to put things in place to make it better for the patients and for that unit. The issue is that there was a lot of people there that weren't qualified to be there and didn't have the experience to be there. And that was a huge problem. And part of the reason why there were so many deaths is because that it was an emergency situation. So they needed bodies there. They needed people to help take care of these people, but they didn't have the right personnel there until we got there, which is one of the reasons why I thank God for bringing me there, for keeping me, covering me, and bringing me back, because my skill set was needed because I was ICU in my background. Most of the people there wasn't ICU. We had an OBGYN, a gynecologist that was running the ICU, along with a pediatric nurse. So we had a kids doctor and we had a gynecologist that was running that ICU when I got there. Literally, the gynecologist is coming to me and like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I know you're an MP. You have the background. Can you help us? And I'm just, I was working as an RN, but I have the license as an MP, but I wasn't even really working in that position. But then I was doing like a hybrid position. And so that was part of the issue. It was people there that weren't qualified to be there, but they needed people. They had too many patients, too many deaths. They needed people there. And the nurses, most of the nurses, they weren't ICU nurses. So a lot of the drips, a lot of the medications that we were given, a lot of the protocols that you have in ICU, they're not familiar with, and they're not able to take care of patients that were that sick. But when you have hundreds and hundreds of patients who are sick and not enough staff, what do? You're a nurse, you need people there to help. But part of the issue is some of the providers that were there, they weren't they didn't have the experience that was needed until we got there and we were able to help and train, and we were able to, kind of set some things in place. And we had to do like some algorithms, like if you got a blood level back and it was certain numbers, we had to create algorithms based upon those numbers so that if anybody saw this number, you would respond this way. So it wasn't, okay, you're going off your experience, you're going off what you know, you're going off, okay, we're telling you, if you see this, you do that. If you see this, you do that. So we had to structure that and put it in place so that anybody who was taking care of that patient could like help manage vent settings or help manage medications. So the first few weeks kind of went like that. And then it's like out of the blue, you get to work one day and from 20 patients, you had maybe 5. And so our first thought is, oh man, 10 patients died overnight. And they were like, nah, they're progressed to a different floor. They got better. So you were like, okay. So after a few weeks, it's like you saw that drop off. You saw a change. You saw patients getting better. And less and less patients were being admitted that were sick, they were ICU, they were critical, to the point where eventually that unit that we created out of thin air, we closed that entire unit down because we got rid of all those patients. And then we went to another unit and we closed, and it was probably maybe 10 or 15 patients there. After days or so, we got most of those taken care of and they got better, and then moved them to another unit. So we were doing that for a while. So we saw it hit hard, saw the pandemic, saw the emergency, but we were able to see them get better. And I was able to see miracles, patients that they were not supposed to make it, and even the doctors gave up on. The doctors didn't even want to assess the patients or anything because there were no brain activity. They're not going to make it. But we know God has a final say so. And even us working, taking care of the patients, we never gave up, and we were able to see some of those patients make it. Some of those patients we never thought would walk, talk, or move, or open their eyes. That happened. So you got to see a progression. And just the hospital that I was working in was an actual COVID hospital. So we saw the spike when it was a lot. We saw it decrease. But then when that decreased, because we were a COVID hospital, all the other hospitals, like you might have heard of Elmhurst and Jacoby and Bellevue, and those hospitals that were mostly on the news, all of those hospitals sent us all their COVID patients. So then we had another spike of influx of patients, and of course they're coming from these hospitals, that were critical. And then another unfortunate thing that I saw, every last one of the patients I took care of were minorities. They were either Black or Hispanic. Yes, it had a lot to do with the area that I was working in the Bronx, but it also had to do with how COVID affects us, our population, worse than it affects any other population, any other race of people. It affects Black and it affects Latinos, Hispanic people more. And those were all of the patients that I saw. And I want to say it has to do with the area, which that's some part of it. But then if you look at the patients that were coming in from the other hospitals, it was the same. They were all Black and Hispanic. So we got really like the worst of the worst. But I was able to see, that's why I said it was a roller coaster, because it was kind of up and down throughout that 3-month process.
Yeah.
So what Governor Cuomo was saying when he would come up every day giving his stats, he was actually telling the truth when those numbers were going down. He said we're seeing less and less of people coming into the hospital. He said, but the numbers are not quite where we want them. So
yeah, I would say that's probably accurate. I didn't watch.
You wasn't watching the news, yeah.
Even when they put it on in the break room, I would leave. To be honest, my thing is when you're walking by faith and you're dependent on God, you're leaning on the Word. Anything that you see that's not of that can chip away at your faith, and it could cause you to focus on the wrong thing. And I didn't want that to be part. I know what I was in. I didn't want to start to experience that. I even had to limit some of the conversations that I was having with people. I would even stop conversations mid-sentence and walk away or tell them, I'm not trying to talk about that. When they say, oh, you know, so-and-so was a nurse here and they got COVID, they're intubated in the hospital, or a patient, another nurse that I work with was telling me he was just at another hospital before coming here and so many nurses died. And I'm like, hold on, you know, I'm not trying to hear none of that because I didn't want that to affect me, because it can, no matter what you say, if you're constantly hearing this negative stuff, doubt can creep in. The devil just needs a little place to slide in, and then you can be lost to your own thoughts. And I didn't want that to happen.
Right.
Like
so Gmo, yeah. So y'all were kind of on the, I guess, kind of there setting the groundwork. It almost sounds like you were, well, you kind of more in like a, not that you wasn't helping patients, because you spoke to that already, but were you kind of training some of these other individuals there on just kind of what to do and just kind of laying out, you know, rules and just kind of things to follow if something happens or somebody codes?
So we did. Part of that was, and we took patients, you know, I had patients every single day throughout the process. But with that, because we were some of the first ones there, we also had to train people that were coming in. So we were there and I wasn't there at the very, very, very beginning. I was like the second wave. I got there before, you know, like after that, the first wave came in. And so I was maybe two waves from my agency out of maybe 6. So each wave after me, brand new, they didn't know, you know, so we had to kind of train them and show them what we needed to do, all while taking patients. And then like the Navy came in, Air Force came in, and we had to train them as well. So yeah, we did train a lot of people that came in to those areas.
And do you think because it was so bad, were just companies kind of lax with who they were letting or allowing to come in, not really looking at their background or skills?
Correct. It was that way. But because it was an emergency response and it was a crisis team, that's how they kind of operate. They need bodies there to help. Right. And they told us that, like at the beginning, they said, this is an emergency response. This is a crisis. Most of y'all will not work in your specialty. We need you there. You're not going to be assigned based upon your specialty. You're assigned based upon how you fall on this alphabetical list. So that's why it's a blessing that, you know, those of us with the ICU experience was there, because they were coming to us asking us, okay, what do we do? I mean, the hospital staff that was there, not only did most of them leave, right, when they saw us, before we got there, a lot of them wasn't even code. Like if the patient was dying, they didn't even want to touch the patient. Like they were afraid of COVID. They were afraid to do things. They didn't even want to touch the patient. And we came in and we was like, you know, what y'all doing? And we jumping in like on top and like, hey, you know, this is what we're gonna do. We're not gonna have this. Like we are here to save, you know, these patients' lives. So the hospital staff there, a lot of them didn't want to work there. A lot of them were upset that we were there. They weren't all that helpful. They really didn't like how we were coming in as foreigners and changing things around. Right. But they really wasn't trying to do that. So we did have to help a lot of people.
That makes zero sense. All of you are there for a reason and a purpose. So why are they holding a grudge because you guys know what you were doing? They should have been like, oh, we got somebody here that know what they're doing. Let's learn so we can be of assistance to them. That don't make no sense. Why for them to be like that? That's crazy to me.
It's 2 reasons. One is pay, to be honest with you, and one is they've been there for years and they don't like newcomers coming in acting like we know everything and changing things and seeing success with it. Right. So you have people that's been there for a while. Exactly, and that's what they thought. That's what they looked at. It was showing them up, and we were there trying to save lives. And it was real bad because it was somebody else that we came there together, and she was younger than me. She might have been like 21, 22, young girl, super smart, and just coming up with so great ideas. I can't even take credit for a lot of the ideas because she came up with a lot of the ideas. But she was just so smart And they were a lot of, the field of nursing, healthcare, it's a lot of women. So a lot of them were jealous because of that. And they hated she was young. They hated she was smart, and she was coming up with all of these ideas, and they were working, and we were implementing them together. And, we got a lot of pushback, and especially like this one all the way up to, man, it's so much that was going on, man.
Right.
Wow.
This one all the way up to administration,
Do you think that's why?
So much.
Like, I mean, I know you were saying that it's the type of community you were in. That's why you saw a lot of minorities. But do you think, too, maybe that mentality with some of those people who've been there for a long time, who think they know what they're doing, and maybe just assume things about their minority patients, you think that's why a lot of us die, like Blacks and Hispanics, Latinos, in these situations? Because we may have someone who's taking care of us who maybe think that once we code or something, well, that's it. I can't do anything. I can't help them further, past this. Or, maybe they just don't have the, type of compassion to go further or to try more. I'm just wondering if that's something that's playing a part too. Maybe these people who don't, who maybe just think that they know it, know it all, and maybe are just letting people die. I mean, maybe that's a bad way to ask it. I don't know. But I don't. Maybe if you have a take on that.
I think the reason why so many Black people in minority are dying is because of our overall health status compared to like the Caucasian race. I think from our diet, from our sedentary lifestyle, lack of exercise, I think that plays the major part in us having so many comorbidities. Also, lack of resource as well. And you think like the not so great hospital is in the not so great side of town, but the good hospital is in the good side of town. And in that good hospitals, you have more knowledgeable employees, more employees that really know what they're doing. And then the not so great hospital, they're not hiring employees based upon experience. So I think that plays a part to the area. But I think most of all is just the comorbidities, which is other diseases, where we a lot have cardiac disease, diabetes, COPD, things of that nature. I think that played the major role is the lack of resource. And then as Black people in minority, we have Black people and Hispanics, all minorities, you have a higher risk of comorbidities just because of our lifestyle and our dietary intake. But this really goes back to slavery, not to take it all the way down. But if you look at the foods that slaves were fed, this is a generation of poor eating habits. When chitlins are a delicacy, to us, Thanksgiving and stuff, but those were the foods that the white people didn't eat. They were trash food and they gave to us. So our dietary habit really comes from generations of poor eating. So that's why we're genetically predisposed to certain comorbidities because of dietary habits. So I think that plays a major role because there were some great nurses that are minority and they care for their patients more than I've seen any other people care for their patients. But they were on our team.
Man, that's crazy. And that's good, man. And I mean, and with everything you said is real, just kind of insightful. I'm definitely thankful for you even coming on, man, and talking about your experience. You definitely need to write that book because people
you definitely planted a seed.
Yeah, you definitely planted a seed. Need to definitely do that. And just one more question as well, maybe to kind of switch it up just a little bit. What are some things, man, we can do to just kind of build up our, like immune system and just kind of, I know you're kind of into health and fitness yourself. We've talked on occasion just kind of, about certain things. So just from your experience, what are some things to kind of build yourself up? So if just say you do get sick, your body can, fight it off the best that it can.
So I think the best thing to do is try to be in optimal health. Means eating a nutritious meal, taking a multivitamin. I definitely think that'll be good. Try to exercise as much as you can. Of course, a lot of the gyms are closed, so kind of people who are used to lifting weights, you might have to try a different avenue to work out. But that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that your body is in the healthiest possible state. But I also want to say you want to make sure you're spiritually and mentally and physically healthy. So my mind frame going in was to do that, was to be spiritually, mentally, physically healthy, and emotionally healthy. That's why I had to deactivate all Facebook because I didn't want negativity. That's why I stayed in the Word. I stayed, not a good thing about COVID, but because of COVID, our bishop were doing, live streaming. I was constantly watching church service. Even when I had wireless earphones. Even when I'm taking care of patients in the middle of codes, during the middle of everything, I had worship music playing in my ear the entire time. Every day when I'm at work, it's playing in my ear. So I'm constantly keeping my mind in praise and worship. Every once in a while I throw on Lecrae or something, and when I was working nights and I get sleepy, I would kind of change it up. But I had to keep my mind, spiritually healthy. So I do think that what we can do is to be physically, mentally, spiritually healthy, emotionally healthy. Try to eat right, try to exercise as much as you can, drink your water, multivitamin would be a good way to keep yourself.
That's good, man. That's real good.
Amen.
I did have one question, and it was regarding the masks. I heard somebody use the term CO2 drive about wearing the mask. Can you explain that a little bit?
Uh, I'm not sure what they might have been referring to. I know some dialogue out there has to do with hypercapnia, which is an increase in CO2. So if you're wearing a mask for too long, you feel like you're breathing your own CO2, and too much CO2, you get lightheaded and dizziness. Is it a possibility? I mean, it's rare that it happens. Is it a possibility putting the mask on can increase your CO2? It's a possibility. It's very rare. We wear N95 masks, and they have the most resistance to certain pores. And we're wearing those 12 hours straight. We'll take off our mask maybe to eat a protein bar real quick and then drink something, and it's back to it. And we didn't have that issue. Nobody had that issue. And this is in, working with, my agency had thousands of providers that was there. Not one person, passed out because of the mask or anything like that. And, we've been wearing masks all the time. So it's just something else that people are using to maybe boycott the mask, because I did see a couple of dialogues about that. But that if it happens, it's very, very rare. And the flip side is either maybe get a little dizzy and wear a mask, or don't wear a mask and increase your risk of catching coronavirus. So it's like, which one do you want to do?
What about like working out with a mask? Is that okay? Or would you recommend not working out with a mask?
So I would always recommend using a mask. If you're working out, it'll make it difficult, and you probably will feel a little dizzy. But you look at people do the like the elevation training mask, and that kind of does the same thing. And it takes a while for your body and your lungs to get adjusted to that, because you're getting a different level. CO2 oxygen exchange, it's a different level. So it takes a while for your body to get adjusted to that. So you can't feel dizzy, you can't feel lightheaded if you're using one of those masks. But even with those masks, people do it. And I've seen people work out with masks. And it might be a little difficult at first, but your body will get adjusted to it. If you're by yourself working out in your home, you really wouldn't need a mask. But if you're with other people, I definitely would suggest wearing a mask for the protection. And you're touching weights and different things like that. You can easily reach up and scratch your nose and not even think twice about it. And that's a mode of contraction or transportation. So you want to be careful. So I definitely would suggest wearing a mask, if you're working out in a public place.
At a time, man. So definitely we're going to pray on this, because this was an amazing talk. I enjoyed every minute of it. And like I said, Jim, I'm just glad that you're back home and you're back safely, and you can go in the backyard, play with your son and everything, and everything's okay. And okay. Well, Father God, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we thank you. Lord, we thank you for this moment. We thank you for this conversation. We thank you for our brother, Guillermo Carnegie. We thank you for everything that he has done in the city of New York by helping those for 3 months. And Lord, for bringing it back home to give us the information that we need to get through this situation. And Lord, we are, even the more we are leaning and depending on you. There's no one like you and no one before you. And we give you all the glory, honor, and praise. And Lord, everything that Guillermo sets his foot upon, Lord, you bless it. And Lord, just give him the victories and things that he wants to accomplish. Because Lord, it's not just going to help him, but it's going to help somebody's life that can be saved, not just saved health-wise by renewing of their mind, Lord, so they can be more connected with you. So Lord, we thank you. We give you praise, we give you honor, and Lord, we just thank you. In Jesus' name we do pray. Thank you, Lord. Amen.